Okay, for episode 13, I want to talk about insulin resistance. What it is, what causes it, and what symptoms to look for to see if you may have insulin resistance. So, insulin resistance, it is a complex condition in which the body doesn't respond as it should to insulin. So, insulin is a hormone that our pancreas makes that is very essential for regulating our blood sugar levels. And over time, with high blood sugar levels and the pancreas producing insulin, the cells can become resistant to the insulin, hence insulin resistance. So it happens when the cells in our muscles, fat, and liver don't respond to insulin as they should to then bring that blood sugar down. This is also known as impaired insulin sensitivity. So, insulin is essential for life and regulating blood sugar levels, also known as blood glucose. So, insulin helps move the glucose in our blood into our cells so our body can use it for energy. There are several reasons that the cells cannot respond to the insulin and they respond inappropriately to insulin. And this means that the cells can't effectively use the glucose for energy or for storage for use for later when your energy levels are low. So as a result, glucose continues to build up in the blood. And then because the levels keep going up, the pancreas makes more insulin to try to overcome the increasing blood glucose levels in our blood. So as long as the pancreas makes enough insulin to balance out the blood sugar levels, then they will stay in a healthy range. But once the cells become too resistant to the insulin, this leads to blood sugar glucose levels being high, also known as hyperglycemia, which over time, with the hyperglycemia, high blood sugar levels, this can lead to prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, which we don't want to get there. So this condition can also be seen is associated with obesity, cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction associated liver disease, metabolic syndrome, and polycystic ovarian syndrome, also known as PCOS. So insulin resistance can affect anybody, and it can be a temporary condition, such as when using a steroid medication for a brief period of time, or it can be chronic. And so the two factors that seem to contribute to insulin resistance are excess body fat, especially around your belly area, and lack of physical activity. But this also is caused by diet. So people who have prediabetes and type 2 diabetes usually have insulin resistance. When we look at blood work, for example, to determine, let's say you're having symptoms and your doctor runs some blood work and they look at fasting glucose, fasting insulin, and fasting A1C to kind of evaluate where you are and how your levels are. And so A1C, when it's elevated and showing levels of prediabetes or diabetes, is also an indicator of insulin resistance. Something else is going on. And so if you have an A1C above 5.7, that could indicate prediabetes insulin resistance. Even if it's like 5.5 or above, we want to start doing interventions to lower that prediabetes and diabetes risk because A1C looks at the average of blood sugar over the past 3 months. So if it's high, that means more times than not, your blood sugar has been elevated for longer periods, and the pancreas has been overproducing insulin to try and bring those levels down. And with the overproduction of insulin, then your cells start ignoring it and not responding as well as mentioned before. And so when we're looking at fasting insulin, often the standard is 2 to 18.4, but optimal, there's always an optimal level, is having 2 to 5 levels of fasting insulin. Oftentimes, I've noticed that providers don't test fasting insulin. So you can always request this to see what your fasting insulin will be. Take in note that if you had a heavy carb meal the night before, because you need to be fasting at least 12 hours before your blood work, that this can increase the result. But it will give you a good indication of how your body is handling the carbs and how your body is handling having high blood sugar. And then if we're looking at fasting glucose levels, standard is 65 to 99. Optimal would be 75 to 86. Oftentimes, when looking at blood work, fasting glucose will be in the 90s. And doctors may say, everything looks normal because it is less than 99. But with a high, if it's been 12 hours since you've eaten and your fasting blood sugar is still in the 90s, then maybe that's something we need to be looking at to see if there's potentially insulin resistance, and diet and exercise can be used to reverse these conditions. But there are symptoms that we can look at without even looking at blood work, because blood work is just a shot in a moment. It's just at that time what your body's doing and how your body's reacting. It does give a good picture of what's going on, but it's just in that moment that the blood work was drawn. So we can look at other signs and symptoms that you may be experiencing that are consistent with high blood sugar levels, also known and insulin resistance. So, if you have insulin resistance, but your pancreas can increase insulin production to keep your blood sugar levels in range, you may not be experiencing symptoms yet. It may take a while for your body actually to exhibit symptoms of insulin resistance. So you may not even know that you are having an issue until it's would be considered a chronic situation. So over time, the condition gets worse because as blood sugars are remaining high, then the pancreas produces more and more insulin, and then the cells become more and more resistant to it. Then the cells start to wear out. And so then eventually your pancreas can't keep up with the production of insulin, and this leads to your blood sugars just being elevated and causing symptoms. So people with consistently high blood sugar levels can experience symptoms like fatigue, increased thirst, frequent urination as the body's trying to get rid of that extra glucose to help maintain homeostasis in the body, increased hunger, blurred vision, yeast infections. They can also have unexplained weight loss. More times than not, it's unexplained weight gain and weight resistance, especially around the abdominal area. But oftentimes people have no symptoms of prediabetes for years because the body is an amazing creation and it is able to maintain homeostasis for a while, which is balance and well-being, until it just can't anymore. So prediabetes may be invisible until it develops into type 2 diabetes. We can also get it early if we're looking at blood works and we're looking at our A1C, fasting glucose, fasting insulin, also C-reactive protein, which peptide, which looks at inflammation in the body. We can also see it in our thyroid function panel and even our cholesterol and triglyceride panel. And even looking at our vitamin D level, we can see, if there's a lot of inflammation in the body, there may be insulin resistance, blood sugar issues going on. Other things that we can see with prediabetes when it's more advanced is darkening skin in the armpit, back, or sides of neck, skin tags, and eye changes that can lead to diabetes-related retinopathy. So without intervention, our body will start breaking down with the high glucose, and we will have more and more health issues that we want to avoid. So ways that we can reverse insulin resistance, where we have the pancreas overproducing insulin to help bring that blood sugar down, to maintain health, is eating a nutritious diet. So we want to look at what we're eating. How much processed foods are we eating? We might need to reduce our carbohydrate intake and our unhealthy fat intake. So this might mean eating less sugar, cutting out added sugar, and cutting out processed starches. Avoid going to fast food restaurants or out to eat, and start making more meals from home, incorporating more whole foods like vegetables and fruits, and high protein intake that help balance out blood sugar with, and incorporating more healthy fats like nuts and avocado and ghee and coconut oil, olive oil. Also, increasing physical activity, finding ways to get regular amounts of moderate intensity physical activity throughout the week. So, depending on what your job looks like, it depends on how you can incorporate physical activity. I know for me, when I am working at the clinic, it's an 8-hour workday. I'm giving infusions and injections all day, doing a lot of work on the computer, more sitting than moving around. And so I make sure that I'm still getting that physical movement in by doing squats every so often when I can take a break. And so usually amounts to doing over 100 squats during an 8-hour workday at the clinic to just keep my body where I need it to be. If I'm working, giving massages, that is physical, but I also make time to do some sort of exercise in the morning. Usually it's Pilates and taking a walk after lunch, and then ending the evening with stretches or a walk to kind of help with my goals. And some days I go to a Zumba class, which is really fun. All of this, when changing your diet, increasing physical activity, lowering the amount of sodas you're drinking, and just how much sugar you're intaking over time, this will bring the blood sugar down, and so then your pancreas won't have to produce as much insulin, and you can start reversing insulin resistance and bringing that A1C down. When I started my health journey a little over a year ago, specifically targeting the root cause of what was going on with me, I was able to identify that I did have insulin resistance, prediabetes. My A1C was 6.1, which was well in the prediabetic range. And so I started incorporating lower carb diet, high protein, and more exercise, and just other health and wellness interventions to help bring the A1C down and regulate blood sugar and insulin levels. And I'm proud to say that my A1C that was taken a little over a week ago was 5.2. So I was able to reverse insulin resistance, bring down my A1C naturally without the help of medication. I'm here to tell you that it's totally possible to get healthier. You got to put the work in though. So over time, the lifestyle modifications that you put in to help your body results in reduction of insulin resistance. It lowers your blood sugar levels. It decreases your blood pressure. So if you have high blood pressure, all of this would help bring that blood pressure down. And it also decrease the triglyceride and the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and improve the HDL, which is the good cholesterol levels. So this is all very helpful in maintaining health and wellness. If you are on any medications, you always want to consult your doctor, your medical doctor about this. Don't stop any medications without talking to them first. This information is just information educational purposes, and you should always talk with your provider before changing any of your medications. But eating a nutritious diet, exercising regularly, and losing excess weight can help promote health and wellness and decrease insulin resistance, decrease prediabetes, and just improve overall health and wellness, lowering that inflammation in your body. When you're looking at your diet, you want to decrease high glycemic index foods. This can be seen in a lot of carbohydrates and sugar. This causes your blood sugar to increase quickly and then requires your pancreas to produce insulin to bring that blood sugar back down. The best thing to do is to avoid high sugar drinks, like I mentioned before, like regular sodas and juices, and avoid eating excess amounts of white bread, potatoes, breakfast cereals, cakes, and cookies. And fruits such as watermelon and dates. You don't need to cut it out completely, but always making sure that you pair your carb with protein and fat, which protein and fat will help stabilize that blood sugar spike and won't cause your pancreas to have to produce as much insulin to bring those levels back down. Low glycemic foods that cause a steadier rise in your blood sugar so you don't have that such extreme spike, so then your pancreas has to produce as much insulin to bring down those levels. It doesn't have to work as hard. So some of the low glycemic foods are beans and legumes, fruits such as apples and berries, non-starchy vegetables such as asparagus, cauliflower, leafy greens, broccoli, also nuts, dairy, fish, and meat, just to give a few examples. But like I've said in previous episodes, if you can identify the foods that you're eating, you're more on a better track. Just to recap, if you are showing signs and symptoms of insulin resistance, or you have concerns that you might have insulin resistance, you can always ask your provider to order labs. Ordering of fasting blood sugar, fasting insulin, and A1C can be a pretty good indicator of what is going on. You can also look at how you're feeling, and then you want to evaluate what you're eating and how your physical activity, what does that look like day to day, and increasing those. I also offer clients the ability to order their own lab tests to take charge and advocate for themselves. So if you're interested, you can always reach out and I can let you know how to do that. Insulin resistance prediabetes is totally reversible through diet and exercise measures. And so I'm here to tell you that it's totally possible. I've done it. I've seen other people do it. And so I hope this episode can give you a little insight of what insulin resistant is, what symptoms to look for, and just some simple ways to start changing your habits to improve your overall health. As always, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button, share with a friend, and leave a review on your preferred platform. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, continue to embrace life and thrive where God has you planted right now.